So, folks, Laura Ingraham has some incredible insight into the move across the country to end the extolling of racists and what they represented. Look, we have some very bad chapters in our history. Some of them are ongoing, frankly, as a society, like most societies. There are bad chapters in all these societies. The question is, how do you teach future generations about those bad chapters? Do you extol the figures? Would you want there to be, if you were in Germany, a statue that uncritically praises, let's say, I don't know, Adolf Eichmann? Would you want that in Germany? I would imagine no, you would not. Could you have museums? Could you have plaques that describe Eichmann's role in a very dark period of their society? Yes, of course. You don't want to deny history, but you also want to make sure that your record of history reflects your understanding of the mistakes that were made at that time. Laura Ingraham apparently does not understand that concept, or does, and wants to pretend that concept is silly.
Cut and dried. There's a movement, particularly among the young, to hate the past and eradicate anything they find objectionable or troubling. And look, every country, all history, has its bad sides, it has its good sides. Good stuff, bad stuff. But this recalls the kind of destructive mindset of, let's say, ISIS. Think about ISIS, what they did. They pillaged and they wiped away irreplaceable historical and religious monuments from Palmyra, remember, in Syria, simply because they could. It was offensive to them. Now, no matter what one thinks of the way this was all treated after the Civil War, whether they should have built these monuments or not, this happened, okay? The Confederacy happened. And we owe it to the future to leave history as it existed undisturbed. Continue to debate it. Have conversations about it. But why not allow future generations the opportunity to mark this history, process it, and come to their own conclusions? Put up another statue commemorating the slaves who were abused and killed adjacent to Silent Sam. But to destroy instead of engage, to defy the law instead of respect it, is no way to honor the past or the future or to highlight all the gains America has made. Now, all
right, so exactly, it's an interesting rhetorical trick that she's playing here. Now, we know that ISIS destroyed these, they destroyed these statues because of religious differences, not just because they found it offensive. And people aren't getting rid of these statues simply because they're offensive. They're getting rid of them because they tell the wrong story and interpretation of history. These people were not to be extolled. If you're very concerned about Silent Sam and you want that history to exist, then raise money to create a little mausoleum for Silent Sam, put it there, and put it in the context of a memorial that actually tells history from the perspective that we now understand it, that this was a very dark period, that there were people who were fighting and were told you need to fight because this is about our sovereignty, as opposed to about our ability to maintain slaves for economic purposes that really you're not going to benefit from. And if you want to tell that story, you can tell it. But the idea that we don't, I mean, would Laura Ingraham say this about some of the 100-year-old, 200-year-old townhouses that were destroyed here in this neighborhood of Brooklyn for a hotel? Would she say that? Of course not.
She becomes like an anti-gentrification activist.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. This is absurd. This is absurd.
Where's your check to the Paul Robeson Theater in Fort Greene?
Of course, exactly.
Moron.
Exactly. I remember when Laura Ingraham had chained herself to the Strand because she was afraid that it might get taken over by Barnes and Noble.
That's right.
And she's
terrified.
acting like the jury's still out on the Confederacy.
Right. We
And
can
it's
still
just like
debate
both
this.
sides, you know?
Right. And the bottom line is, the problem is that these statues do not reflect our history. They are propaganda. Just because they was built doesn't mean that it should stay there for eternity without some form of reinterpretation, or frankly, just it sends the wrong message.
Yeah, that's a big part of why we study history, right? So that we can create sort of a living concept of what these things meant to us as a people.
I mean, she's not concerned about the Indian, the Native American villages that some of these cities are built on. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd.
Yeah, I actually think it's a great way to engage with history, to take down the statues venerating the Confederacy. So.
It's that. I mean, in some ways, what you really should be doing is a video installation of people taking down the statue. And that would really teach history.